Okay, my name is Eric. I'm from Köge, and just like life, I don't know that much about water either, and we apologize for this. But I'll try and give you an introduction to some of the challenges we have in Köge with coastal protection, which really is something I think most of you can relate to, especially after an event a few months ago. Yesterday I showed this slide, and I was very proud to say that we have a coast of 10 to 15 kilometers. Then a few hours afterwards, Akko from Kalmar said, well, we have 5,000 kilometers of coast. So perhaps their challenge is a bit bigger than ours. But here at least you can see that we're directly situated at the Baltic Sea. So obviously the Baltic Sea can be, as well as being a resource, can also be a challenge for us. We've been, well, obviously global warming, coastal protection has been an issue for quite some years. And at a political level, since 2015, we've sort of got some consultants to do a report. How can we protect Köge in the best way against storm surges and against the rising sea level? They produced a catalogue with solutions. Looks like this. You can see the coast again, and you can see different prices of different solutions, like dikes, like locks, like different things to protect Köge. And you can sort of see, obviously this is perhaps a bit exaggerated, but if there's no protection, you can see that the entire Köge will be flooded, basically. In their report, they looked at the different scenarios. They looked at a sort of a temporary solution, which would be protecting Köge about 2 meters, a permanent protection level of 221. And why did they do this? Apparently this happens once every 100 years. The level of the Baltic Sea rises by to 221. Every 270 years, it's 280. And the thing that happened on the 4th or 5th of January was luckily only 157. And obviously the discussions are, okay, if we want to protect our coasts, well, how much should we invest? Are we going for the temporary solution, for a more permanent solution, or an even more permanent solution? And how are we going to pay for it? This was the harbour of Köge on the 4th of January, and basically you can't see the harbour basin because the water had sort of come out. This is the stream of Köge, but luckily, because of certain prevention, there wasn't that much damage. You can see these water tubes on the afternoon. Here they're being put in place and somewhere else in Köge. And obviously also the traditional sand bag kind of thing was also being used. And here you can see a map of Köge. I mean, if the sea had risen by 1 meter and 35, and there had been no kind of protection, you can already see what would happen with the blue areas. I mean, quite some parts of Köge would be flooded. If you look at the 157, which was the actual level on the 4th of January, if nothing had happened, a substantial part of Köge would have been flooded. So this means that something has to be done, obviously. And if we were to have something like 2.8 meters, this thing that happens once every 270 years, no town, no municipality, just. But then again, you go back to the costs that I mentioned before. Doing some kind of temporary protection with water tubes or things like that would cost 2 million euros. 221, 20 million euros. 280, 26 million euros. And starting with 221, and then after 10 years going on to 280, obviously will be much more expensive. So there are discussions now about doing the whole thing, because if something were to go wrong, the potential damage would be 250 million euros every time. So obviously something has to be done. And what we sort of saw on the 4th of January was that there's quite some competition with other municipalities on getting resources, obviously money, but also manpower to address the situation in our municipality, because it's sort of managed nationally. So you have to sort of, on a temporary basis, you need manpower resources. You have to get started as quickly as possible. You know, the Danish Meteorological Institute, etc., and be prepared. But the thing is that, especially in Denmark, I mean, even though we have now in the eastern part of Denmark, 8 municipalities working together, trying to get some mutual standards, which is fine. But at the end of the day, it's still, and here you can see what happened on the 4th of January, it's still sort of a temporary solution. I mean, obviously it's good to work together with emergency plans, but what we're looking for is a more permanent solution. And that's why we need coastal protection as a more permanent solution. But in Denmark, at least, it's a complicated process because landowners themselves are responsible for protecting their plot of land. But they also need protection. I mean, you can't just have one person building a big dike and someone else doing something else. I mean, it has to be a permission from the Danish Coastal Protection Agency. But landowners also have to pay for it themselves. So this is, I mean, it's a complicated process. Luckily, at least on the west coast of Denmark, where you have big dikes, houses falling off because of erosion, the national government pays, but they don't do that in other parts of the country because obviously it's expensive. But what's happening in Köge now is that we're going to have this consultation with the citizens that are living along the coast. There'll be some plans in the coming years. They have to make an application to this Danish Coastal Authority. They have to approve these plans. And you have all this stuff with permits. You have Natura 2000 areas in Köge that have to be protected. There's also cultural heritage areas that might be involved. And at the end of the day, the landowners, I mean, after the consultation, they'll be charged. I mean, the municipality obviously will pay for the whole thing. Perhaps this 250 million, or the 28 million euros, 250 million crowns. But the landowners will be charged by extra taxation. This is how it's going to work. And coming back perhaps to the thing that Leif also drew over here, it seems to be a bit of a strange way of dealing with things, that you're trying to get local solutions to global challenges. And why aren't people working together? I mean, you had this good example in your region Baltic, where you're doing this kind of thing. But how can we sort of ensure that at a national level, there's one plan and it's paid for? And how can we do it in the Baltic Sea, and also perhaps at an EU level? And who should we involve in this kind of thing? That was the end of my brief presentation.
Thank you very much.